Hello and welcome to Politics Now. My name is Morno Balagbogo, and tonight we've got quite a show for you. Over the weekend, there's been allegations, going around regarding the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. We'll be talking about that, but that will be later on after we talk about the business of today, which has to do with the build-up to the rerun and by-elections. Here is a rundown of some of our talking points. We'll talk about lessons from the 2023 off-circle elections, and then tensions in political parties over candidate selection, and then INEC's role in providing a level playing field for candidates. And of course, we'll talk about Tinubu's poverty alleviation funds. Talking points, we'll look at allegations of fraud and calls for probing to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, accountability and transparency in handling of public funds. And I'm not alone, of course, today. I've got with me in the studio Joseph Omar Philip, who is a political analyst, a community mobilizer, researcher, peace builder, and community development practitioner. Good day and thanks for coming on Politics Now.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's just bring you up to speed with the development as regards the rerun and by-circle elections before we go straight to the conversation proper. Now, 2024 is gearing up to be the most busiest year yet in politics, as over 60 nations are gearing to be heading to the polls, and Nigeria will be inclusive. As you'd recall, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, approved the timetable for conducting by-elections resulting from the resignation or demise of members of the national and state houses of assembly. Now, INEC has fixed Saturday, February 3rd, 2024, for the by and rerun elections, and vacancies occurred across 2 senatorial districts, 4 federal constituency, and 3 state constituencies spanning 9 states of the federation. And according to the timetable for the poll, the conduct of party primary elections, including the resolution of disputes that may arise from the primary elections, has been fixed to hold between January 5th and 9th. And of course, tomorrow is the deadline. The public campaigns by political parties has commenced, and of course will commence rather from January 18th to February 1st before the election itself. And joining me now, of course, in the studio is Joseph Omar Philip. Once again, thanks for being with us on the program. Now, let's begin with the deadline for the primary. For the party primaries, 5th to 9th January. Is it enough given the drama that we see in political parties?
First of all, we need to understand that it's a by-election. And so fundamentally, it's also that it's something that, yes, you may have plan B, plan C's, administrative-wise, but it's something you actually don't foresee. And let's not forget, INEC as an institution has off-cycle elections also to conduct, particularly Ondo and Edo. So for me, fundamentally, it's also to look at it from the perspective of the institution itself. Now, I want to believe that they are making the best use of time available, because this is for them, first of all, organizing these by-elections, and then immediately, already even these 2 elections, or circle elections we're talking about, are already in motion. So in a way, this is more or less, permit me to say, as a distraction. So is 1 week enough? Yes, I feel it's enough.
What is it distracting, if I may ask?
So for me, one is this, in terms of personnel, because whether we like it or not, there must be reallocation of personnel. Right, in the sense that maybe, yes, at the state level you already have people, but you know how it is for every off-cycle election, national election commissioners are deployed, and so also staffs from other states are also deployed to provide support. Now, but at the end of the day, you have these people that will be deployed to manage these off-cycle elections. And then let's not also forget that even in terms of the funds, because to a large extent, whether we like it or not, this off-cycle election was not budgeted for in this recent budget that has been passed by the National Assembly. So in a way, in terms of funding also, it may be constraining. But like I said, even, sorry, maybe before, is fundamentally, when we look at it from the angle of the political parties, it's the fact that you already have candidates on ground. So it's not like you are going to shop again for new candidates. In as much as, yes, we know the Constitution and the Electoral Act requires that everything is conducted afresh. But one thing is certain is that there is already a sort of consensus and understanding who the likely candidates might be. So when you have that whole level of negotiations and horse trading that conventionally should happen, I don't think that would be the case here. So it's more or less, and already most of the candidates have given themselves, have been given the opportunity to sell themselves already within the political party network. So to a large extent, I feel for any serious-minded political party, 1 week should be enough.
All right. Now, I asked that question because we begin to see tensions in the parties, most especially APC, and like what's happening in Benue State, that the governor had to even suspend, the primaries in that particular state due to some irregularities.
So I think fundamentally it's I don't see it as a question of the timeline, because if we remember, even with the 2023 general elections, you could see, even with the ample time that was given, political parties were still not able to put their acts together. The party in power even had to demand for extension. Now, and is a reflection of our political culture, because fundamentally it's the fact that, and that is why, first of all, I appreciate the fact that as a studio or as a network, you are putting searchlights on this, because it's high time Nigerians we make the internal party politics of the political parties our business, because you and I can't make it to the ballot without being involved in the political party. So, which means, unfortunately for us, the people that would govern us would be produced by the political parties. At the end of the day, irrespective of our preference, they are the ones that will determine who we choose. And for me, fundamentally, those are the issues, the discipline within the political parties. Because if you look at it, fundamentally, for you to be a political party or to be recognized as a political party, it is expected that your internal party regulations are submitted and endorsed by INEC, right? That also there is a political party guideline that INEC has and has produced. But then, if we are to conduct an independent audit of the activities of these political parties, you would get to realize that there is a whole lot of rascality going on. And what is it? Fundamentally, is driven by personal interest. The situation in Benue is unfortunate. And why I say it's unfortunate is because I wouldn't want to comment on things, because you know how it is at times. I've learned over time that it's beyond what makes it to the news, right? But fundamentally, it's that if we need to trust political parties with leadership, if political parties want us to start trusting them with leadership, then they need to start demonstrating that capacity for leadership by organizing themselves internally. It's unfortunate.
Now, but when you have issue with, the price of forms, nomination forms, some go for 5 million, some go for 3 million. How do they organize themselves? Because that already, constitutes a problem on its own in terms of selecting candidates that are credible.
So, for me, one is, I think we need to even talk about the entire leadership recruitment process. And I see it beyond the prism of the primaries itself. I know at a point, I think sometime last year, I saw an advert by the PDP. By the way, I'm not in no way advocating for PDP. I need to state this. But for them, they were advertising or recruiting for the executive director, director general of the People's Democratic Institute. Now, it may interest you to know that that institute has been in existence, if I'm not mistaken, for the past 10 years, but it has not been operational. And what was the main thrust or the vision behind that institute was, one, to properly articulate the policy direction for the party, but fundamentally it's also for mentorship. Because it's not enough for everybody. And
but is it operational now?
I don't know. I don't know.
When you look at the current state of the party,
yeah,
you discover that they really need to do that.
Thank you. That is where I'm going to, because for me, it's not enough when you have accidental candidates, and let me use that word, because when you look at into the background of many of the candidates put forward, you get to see at times you have people who are just living their normal life and they're like, come and lead us. We feel you have the capacity. We feel you have the competency, right? And unfortunately, the allegiance now tends to be towards those people that are putting them in power and not really towards the mandate of the office. And that brings it even down to the whole level of purchasing of the forms. Because fundamentally, let's be frank and candid, and that's the fact that we have many people who are well to do that can afford that form. But we have seen situations where people with competency, with character, and the means to get those forms, at the end of the day, they are substituted for people that are preferable. And I share this from the experience of the not too young to run, because yes, we know that one of the fundamental challenges for young people, most especially, has always been the funds and the rest. But hey, I believe you have been following the story of Mommy Z over the weekend, of the funds that were mobilized for her.
But that's a matter of chance, and
Yes, that's a
that has
matter of
nothing to do
chance.
with politics.
That has nothing to do with politics,
Okay.
yes. But it also tells you the avenue technology provides for funds mobilization, for social mobilization, for political mobilization. But then the question is, why has that not been manifesting in our political parties? And I can tell you for free, fundamentally, it talks to trust and confidence. Let's go back to 2023 and let's talk about the obedient movement, or the Peter Obi candidacy. That is a clear case of how leadership compels followership. There were people that were willing to donate their funds. There were people that were willing to commit their time. Because if we break down the cost of running for office, you get to see that a chunk of it goes into logistics, goes into production and procurement. And a whole of this lot of these things, because this is one thing I tell young candidates, the fact that if you are able to inspire the level of followership required for your office, funding would be an issue. But you get to see that within the political party structures, forget it. If really the interest and the gatekeepers are interested in you, form will not be an issue. At the end of the day, it will be clash of interest, and that is what is manifesting. So for me, I'm hoping that also along the way, because we get to see it, I think in a way these interests are beginning to institutionalize. I wouldn't want to distract us and go into that, but I'm hoping that it will get to that time where we will be systematic in articulating and interesting, because forget it, the truth is politics is about interest. It's about if really we are able to give a fair level playing ground, or if really there are codes and of conduct that really are guiding it, and that is what is missing. For me, it's not really about accessibility, but the principles, the norms and cultures that are meant to guide our democratic practice as a people. Do we really adhere to it, whether as leaders, whether as followers, be it a voter or be it a supporter? Fundamentally, those democratic norms and cultures, how evident are we imbibing it? That's the fundamental thing.
Now, let's talk about the 2023 elections.
Yeah.
We had the general elections, presidential, the gubernatorial elections, and then the off-cycle elections.
Yeah.
What are some of the lessons, after the general elections in February
Yeah.
and the governorship elections in March? The Nigerians had a lot of issues. INEC had its own fair share. And, we were thinking that when it comes to the November elections, the off-cycle elections in Bayelsa, Kogi, that there will be, an upgrade, to how the elections was conducted. But funny enough, people in the civil society, just like yourself, kind of appraised, positively the performance of INEC. But what's your own take on what happened, and how do we learn from that going into these rerun by-elections?
So for me, I think fundamentally it's if there's anything I've learned from the 2023 experience generally, is technology is not enough. It's too short a time, but It's something long term that needs to be worked on, and that's the fact that beyond competence and capacity of those managing the electoral process, we need to start paying more emphasis to character. Character here speaks to the integrity of the people managing the process. Because, hey, at the end of the day, you may have a sound management system, you may have an optimal and efficient technology deployed for the
People are going
process,
to operate them.
but people are going to operate them. And when I talk about character, when I talk about integrity, I don't want to rush to INEC. I don't want to rush to INEC staff. Because you see, the funny thing at the end of the day is that the young people whom their future is mortgaged on the ballots are the primary managers of the elections, whether as political party agents, whether as election observers. In fact, I dare say whether as security or as poll officials. Because, hey, 10 years, 20 years down the line, many of those in power now, whether in the institution or within the political parties, may be no more. We are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of this. So the question now is, what level of integrity and character do we manifest at that level? Because it's very important. You know, it's one thing, it's easy to point at the leadership because, yes, they are meant to take the bulk of the blame. But for me, fundamentally, is as the ordinary Nigerian, we need to start bearing responsibility for some of these things. That we are able to vote independently without bias, without any being incentivized monetarily, because those are some of, yes, there is hunger. We believe, we know that. Yes, there are so many pressures and demands, but it's also for us to be driven with that understanding that, look, that person that is giving you the money would surely devise a means of getting it back. And that would be your taxes. That would be the royalties of the minerals that are excavated in your community. That would be the budget allocation meant for the hospital. So for me, that reorientation needs to happen fundamentally first. Then administrative-wise, in all honesty, is that INEC needs to be open and transparent. There is no two ways about it.
Were they opened during the off-cycle elections?
So to a large extent, in all honesty, no. And why I say no is because the statistics speaks to it. Let's narrow down to what happened in Kogi. Right? There were so many stories about already filled results. To a large extent, the following morning there was mixed information about whether if the elections will be cancelled or otherwise. And then all of a sudden, a decision was taken that, look, we'll stand by what happened, and technicalities, see, forget it. I can always use technicalities to explain whatever situation.
Funny enough, I was there actually at
Okay.
the collation center, and what the returning officer said was that the votes that were tampered with, or the field ones, were not enough, to be able to counter
See,
the vote as a whole.
the truth is,
So on that basis, do they have the right to just go ahead
no,
and declare the
INEC
winner?
needs to be honest with themselves, right? And this is me talking about the standards, because I dare question at times also the competence of some of those deployed actually to manage the process as INEC staffs themselves. And why am I saying this? Now, you get to see that there are bases for which in 2023 general elections, some elections were, I'm talking about now the whole over voting, under voting, and the rest. Let me give this case of Ondo, Kaduna, and Adamawa State. They were all, if you look at it critically, the truth is they were all around the whole margin of lead principle. In some states, the principle was strictly adhered to. In other states, I dare to say in Ondo State, it was not. Because we know that the null votes the votes they were nullified and all were more than the margin of lead between the two candidates. You had a case in Kaduna where openly the party representative of the PDP was challenging the returning officer. Even in that case, also citing provisions of the act. But all it took was the man excusing himself, making a phone call with Abuja, and a decision was made. See, we need to get to that point where you don't need to wait for a decision because already the guidelines are clear. If it is an issue of ambiguity, fine. We have the electoral reform process currently going on with the National Assembly. They are committed to it. They have promised to at least deliver a new electoral act. So if it is ambiguity, which in some cases for me I believe it's not, then let it be sorted. And this dovetails even to some of the judgments we are seeing, because most times when I engage some of the lawyers and all, and they'll tell you, there's this word they always use that it's not about the judgment, it's about the facts of the case. Unfortunately, before our learned friends or come for me, but fundamentally there are so, and that's why for me I say it. See, what you can always hide behind technicalities, but what is the court of public opinion saying? Because at the end of the day, public leadership, it's about legitimacy, it's about trust, it's about confidence. And if really I don't buy into your leadership, I don't buy into your candidacy, then there is every chance that I would not buy into your policies and programs as a government. I would forever explore opportunities to undermine your effectiveness as a leader. So these are some of the fundamental issues. And even going into this off-cycle election is unfortunate. And why I say it's unfortunate is that if you look at it, even the level of interest the 2023 elections generated, we're not seeing it here. So,
that was going to lead me to my next question now,
yeah.
because when we look at the miniature in terms of scale of these elections, do you think it gives room for external influence? Because we saw a lot of complaints last year regarding the elections, and now, just like you said, seems to be, no much interest in these elections. Is that something that we should be worried about?
It is, actually. It's something we should be worried about, because one of the fundamental principles behind election observation per se is to detect and deter fraud. Now, but I wouldn't want to call organizations on camera, but I can tell you for a fact that most of the leading civil society organizations most likely will not deploy for these elections.
And why?
And those are the challenges most times with these
Is it
by-elections.
because there's no money to gain from it?
No, not to gain, but it's also the fact that you need to understand that there is a whole issue of funding in itself, in the sense that, and that is where also that's where the disadvantage in the by-elections comes in, because these things takes planning. First of all, as a civil society organization, you need to reach out to a donor with a proposal, then the whole back and forth about negotiations and all comes in. All these things we're talking about costs money, a whole lot. So these are some of the issues. And so when you have such elections happening, first of all, in the second month of the year, and when was it announced? In December. So just that short notice. Now, how many organizations will be able to mobilize and deploy? That is one. And second is also from the fact that, what's it called? Most of these organizations we're talking about are just resuming. Some are just out
Getting their plans for the
the
year.
year and all, having their retreats, putting organizations, and so you have that in
So
check.
was it fair for INEC to actually slot this election at this particular time?
And
I mean, the off-season elections are way back in November. So why February?
So for me, I think fundamentally it's this, that in Nigeria there is one challenge we are having. The civil society has been doing an excellent work. But however, there is an eminent danger in it, and that is the fact that we are projectizing, let me use that word, civic responsibility and obligations. That fundamentally it's for us to know that, look, policing the entire democratic process is first a civil responsibility before an organizational mandate or responsibility. And so it is my responsibility as an individual, right, to follow up and police the process as a citizen, as a Nigerian citizen. But unfortunately, you would see beyond the elections. So it's important for us to know that policing the process is first of all a civic obligation. So it's not a civil society mandate. So in as much as yet INEC didn't give ample opportunities for these organizations to mobilize as it's meant to be. But it's also to know that as residents of these constituencies, yes, we have the mandate of one, voting, but beyond voting is also we have the mandate of conscientizing others and mobilizing to police the process. So it's not bad if we see community-led organizations mobilizing young people or mobilizing the community members to say, okay, do you know what? We don't have the competence, we don't have the capacity, but can we partner with you? Provide, since you already have the technicalities, you will know these processes. Guide us. We are willing to do, because at the end of the day, the truth is a chunk of the funds we're talking about and the preparations is logistics. It only takes a day or two to train. And from my experience with Yaga, I can tell you, anybody with permit me to use the word chinkofu can actually effectively monitor and provide feedback in the process. So citizen observation efforts on its own, it's something that we should encourage. Beyond what organizations can do, it's what can we do as individuals, because it needs to really start from that point. Yeah.
Now, the issue of voter apathy for these rerun elections, how do we have a seamless elections, given the fact that most of these reruns are due to court judgments? So, what if we have a situation whereby this election comes through and we still have to go to the court?
Now, it's unfortunate that judges are becoming voters in the Nigerian elections. It's unfortunate. Sorry, I wouldn't want to mention his name. What one of the foremost politicians or political leaders in this country was sharing with me an experience, and he was like, he was shocked. I think was it in that should be like either 2010 or 2011. He traveled to South Africa, and they were discussing the whole elections, and his South African counterpart was shocked that we go to court after elections in Nigeria. He was like, why do you have to go to court? The people have decided. So it's something that whenever court cases are mentioned, it hits me, and I'm like, but if you look at it, that's true. Why do we always have to go to court? But it speaks a whole lot. First of all, about the system and about we as a people. Because there are some obvious cases you see and you know that, okay, this is supposed to be the outcome. But it's either when the mandate is not gotten at the polls, the next thing is the court. It's unfortunate that the popular mantra during the 2023 election was, let's go to court. But what is the danger in that? And I'm happy you mentioned voter apathy, because the twin brother of voter apathy is also voter fatigue, right? Let's take
Imagine voting now,
thank-
then you're coming to vote,
no, let's even
and then you're coming to vote,
let's
and you
even-
keep going to court, and the
let's even
judgments
let's
keep
even
coming.
talk about the case of Kogi State. Let's look at Kogi State, for instance, where there was a voting during the presidential elections, right? Now, after the presidential election, there was also the voting for the House of Assembly, because they didn't have the governorship at that
Yeah.
time. And then in November, you now had governorship elections. Now, That's 3 different elections. Now, that is me taking out or committing 3 of my Saturdays for voting my representatives. Now, imagine if peradventure, by chance, if it was that one of those House of Assembly members that was voted in
Yeah.
March last year happens to be here. Now, that is me coming for the 4th time. Now, no matter how enthusiastic I am, definitely there are some numbers that would fall by the way. So in as much as we are trying to, and that's where the whole, and I understand also the wisdom behind INEC to try and make sure, okay, you know what, let's have all these by-elections together. Because in technically, if you look at it, some were supposed to have been conducted way earlier. And then there are some also that the timeline also is a bit flexible and they could have pushed it further, but we understand. And so for me, in as much as I know one thing for sure, by-elections have always recorded low voter turnout. And it's unfortunate that in that also is another eminent danger, which is that of the voter fatigue. People are getting tired. And you see, when you keep voting and voting, coming out, first of all, let's not forget, these people queue to get registered. They queue to collect their PVCs. They queue to vote. And at the end of the day, you finish doing that. It's one thing when your candidates don't win. But it's another thing if you feel your candidate would have won if it were a fair process. So how would it be that, yes, the candidate I voted for in the previous elections was manipulated out, and then you are calling me now again for another by-election? So,
All right, because of time, we have to move forward with the conversation. Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
What makes